Friends, this is a Clock Prophecy update for June 15, 2019. We reached the end of the black ring on the clock in just 33 days on July 12th, as discussed earlier in these messages. We may then move to critical mass where the events of Revelation chapter 13 at last unfold, just 42 months before the return of Christ, or less if the time is further shortened. The growing perception that President Trump has emerged victorious in his many battles with the deep state is yet another sign for us that the forces of darkness will soon make their move. Likewise, two meteors streaking through space near the Earth just weeks ago, click the image found at the website for more information about that, tell us we may have run out of time. Previously, I described President Trump as a catalyst ordained by God to move us further into the prophetic timeline. This pertains initially to the deadly head wound, Revelation 13 verse 3, disabling the first beast, identified on the clock as Barack Obama. As the first in a trifecta of biblical events, the head wound will be followed by a large meteor, Revelation chapter 8 verses 7 and 8 and chapter 18 verses 1 through 10, destroying Rome and most of Europe, after which the Antichrist will arise out of London. The first mention of Antichrist in Revelation is in Revelation chapter 13 verse 11. He is the second beast who brings about and enforces the use of the mark. See my book, The Clock of the Four Night Watches, to learn how the clock identifies the prince who becomes king as described in Daniel, based on the physical location of this verse in Scripture, and to understand his role as the world's last tyrannical king, the man we call Antichrist. In chapter 3 of my book, I provide 10 mathematical proofs of this end-time message, one of which documents the arrival of Revelation 6 verse 1, referring to the first seal, and the largest storm in recorded history, which deposited snow across 9 countries of South Africa on the morning of August 8, 2012, where the first seal opened on the clock. Contrary to modern church dogma, the first seal is about the preemptive takeover of the nations by Christ, as stated in Revelation chapter 11, verse 15, a conquest prophetically matched to his preemptive ride in Jerusalem, or into Jerusalem, before his death and resurrection. When Judas betrayed Christ at the Last Supper, was it Judas or was it God who initiated the events that led to the Lord's crucifixion? Likewise, when the Antichrist betrays the Jews before Christ returns, will it not be used by God to bring the revelation of Christ to them as planned from the beginning? Does this not show that God always goes first? The government of Israel has fallen into a state of collapse that is also divinely ordained to take place at this time. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has been denied a coalition government despite his re-election as prime minister last year. As a result, an entirely new election must take place in the fall, at which point I believe Netanyahu and his party may lose their grip on power. I believe this will have the effect of inciting Israel's Arab neighbors to make a move against her, initiating the War of Psalm 83, or the Battle of Armageddon as it is called in the book of Revelation. The time of Jacob's trouble will be a period of crisis for Israel during the events of the 7 trumpets, and Scripture says her journey into the wilderness will last for 42 months. We are told in Revelation that the first beast is given a continuance of power for exactly this same period of time, 42 months, following his near-fatal head wound. For that reason, I expect to begin a final count of days from that event. Will the meteor that destroys Rome and most of Europe strike this summer? I don't know, but if it does, we can expect the removal of the 144,000 by harpazo, Revelation chapter 12, verse 5, to occur in 2019. The first in a 4-part harvest explained by Jesus in his vineyard parable, Matthew 20, verses 1 through 16, where he used 4 clock times and a warning that many who are expecting to be first will instead be last. Since the rapture of the church will not occur before the removal of the 144,000, I expect the larger catching up to begin at the earliest in 2020. It is certainly possible we will move past the summer of 2019 before reaching critical mass on the clock. However, current events suggest that we have reached the precipice of Revelation 13, meaning the events of the 7 trumpets could begin here. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem and pray for President Trump in your daily devotions. I also ask that you pray for this ministry and share this end-time message with your pastor and friends in the short time we have left. God bless as you continue to hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. Behold, I come quickly. This is Peter John Brandal.